Hello, my name is Stephanie Ramirez, and this is my first video blog for my sociology class. We are supposed to answer a few questions, and the first one is, do I know my heritage? Yes, I am Puerto Rican. My parents are 100% Puerto Rican, their parents are 100% Puerto Rican, and so on and so forth. I don't know where originally, like, let's say my great-great-great-great-grandfather came from, but I do know that pretty much every traceable ancestor that um, I've been able to learn about has been from Puerto Rico. Now, this history has been passed down by my family just because my mom was told by my grandmom, who was told by her mom, etc., etc., etc. And the same goes on my dad's side. My mom and dad were the first generation of their family to be born in the actual United States. So that makes me the second generation. That's kind of cool because that means pretty much everyone before my parents and I were born in Puerto Rico and had a life there, and from what I hear, it's just totally different. So let's see. Number two, how is one's race or ethnicity related to their culture? Well, I know for me personally, my race is related to my culture in the sense that I have been instilled from a very young age to respect my parents. That is something that is placed in a very high regard in Hispanic households, to respect the people that are living there. And sometimes the rules can be a little ridiculous or you might not agree with them, but it's your responsibility to comply and to always make sure that your parents are happy. And eventually they're going to give you freedom. I mean, no Hispanic person that I know has like had a mom who's still like jumping down their throat when they're 30 or something. So we still do get the freedom, but until we move out and are able to support ourselves, it's understood that we are living with our parents and we are being respectful and listening to the rules, even though we may not agree or think they're kind of outlandish. So that's something that I've had to deal with until I've moved out. Let's see. Another thing that has impacted my culture because of my race, I would say, is probably we're a little old-fashioned. At least my parents are. My mom still believes that a man and woman should be married together and there should be no other combinations of marriage between gender and stuff like that. She doesn't really understand the whole transgender thing that's going on. She generally is a liberal person, but she has these old-fashioned ideals, as well as my dad. They believe that every couple, once married, needs to have kids and needs to reproduce. They believe that Christianity is kind of like the right choice for morality and for religion and how to live your life and stuff like that. And I can't say that I agree on many of those things. I am not a Christian. I also am not a very old-fashioned kind of thinker. For instance, I live in a studio apartment right now with my boyfriend, and that is something that to my parents would have never happened if they were my age being raised by my grandparents. That was not an option. So I definitely do think a little bit differently than them, and because of the way they think, it has influenced me to now think this way about how I think. So that's another way that race and ethnicity are related to my culture. Third question says, what impact does art have on culture? Select an area of art. Okay, so I just think art in general, you know, like paintings or pictures, photography, stuff like that, I think that those have a large impact on culture because, especially with photos that you're taking with a camera, you can capture an actual moment, a raw, pure moment from wherever you're at. And let's say you're traveling somewhere new for the first time, you take a picture of just some unadulterated interaction that's going on between these people from another country. You might see something that you've never seen or understood before because you only know your culture. So I think art has impacts on culture in ways that it exposes us to them very quickly, but also in a very peaceful way. It's not very aggressive, you know. It's not like a protest standing out on the corner saying that you don't support something. It's just a quiet piece of of a drawing or whatever you have there, and it has its purpose and its meaning, and it's individual for each piece that you look at. And I just think that it's a really good way to get a glimpse into a culture that you're not familiar with. Some cultural universals that are in art include, let's say, crime. Crime happens everywhere we go. Obviously, every city in every world, I'm sure, has a crime rate. Maybe they're not as high as the crime rates in America, but I actually don't really know about that. So let's see. Crime is definitely depicted in art. Um, there was a time when a lot of um, paintings were done by Renaissance artists, and it included their paintings like stabbing other people or killing themselves or in war, shooting people's heads off. They were really gory, bloody. People had lost limbs and stuff like that. That's a glimpse into the wars that were going on. And for people who didn't know what was going on back home, who had sent their husbands away to go fight, now they have this glimpse into what's going on. And this is true everywhere. Crime has always been depicted in all different forms of art all over. Another thing I would say is probably sex. Every freaking country has sex, obviously. We're all reproducing like rabbits. We have way too many people on the planet, so I think it's easy to say that sex is definitely a cultural universal. It's also depicted in art. Sometimes you see pictures of naked people or straight up pictures of people, doing a thing. It's just, sometimes it happens. So I think those are ways that culture is impacted by art. It exposes people to something that they're not familiar with in another culture. Number 4 is to discuss an example of ethnocentrism, cultural relativism, or assimilation. Okay, so I think I have a pretty good cultural relativism story from my personal experience. So pretty much cultural relativism means that you are looking at someone else's culture from the lens of your culture. And this isn't generally a good idea. It pretty much makes you ignorant. And it's happened to all of us, not to say that you should know everything about every culture ever before you go anywhere, but it's definitely worth doing a little bit of research before you are visiting a place that you are culturally unfamiliar with, just so that you can understand that there might be some crazy things that are different that are so subtle to change. So a story that I have is I was in Mexico this past February, and this was my first time even traveling out of the country. I was so pumped. And when I was buying things at a market down this alley, I would ask how much something cost, and they would give me a price, and then I would just say, okay, and then I would buy it because everything was super cheap anyway because it was Mexico. So I would just buy it, and then my boyfriend comes up to me and then he goes, well, aren't you going to haggle with them? You can lower the price. And I was like, what? And then he's like, yeah, you can lower the price. If they say 75 pesos, you can say, oh, how about 60 pesos? And then maybe they'll say, oh, how about 70 pesos? And you can haggle and get as low a price as possible. Sometimes they go pretty low. So I didn't know that. So I had spent a bunch of money already by that point. I didn't even realize that I could haggle. And after that, I pretty much tried to lower the price down of everything. Freaking tortas, quesadillas. I tried to lower the price down on everything. It didn't always work, especially for food, because most of the time they just want their 10 pesos. But when I bought some magnets and stuff and candles, I started haggling, and I got pretty good prices. I got really cheap stuff at that point, so can't complain. Okay, let's see. I think that's pretty much it. I think I answered all of them. Bye!